Hi everyone, welcome back to MUSIC119. Recently we learned how to build and identify different types of triads and seventh chords. And today we're going to build upon those and we're going to learn how to use these chords in context, particularly in a major key. So if we look back at our very first week, we learned how to name notes, right? The 7 different letter names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then from that, we start to get into half steps and whole steps. And using those, we learn how to build a diatonic scale, right? We learn how to build a major scale and the 3 types of minor scales. And after that, we learn different types of intervals and then triads and seventh chords. So today we're going to basically piece all of these different elements that we already know together, and it will be quite fun. So what you're seeing right here is the good old C major scale, right? And you remember when we start to learn about triads, we use this very special term, which was the perfectly stacked pancakes, right? So this is going to be the same thing. We're going to basically build pancakes upon these notes that are in a major scale. So what you're seeing right here is the perfectly stacked pancakes on each of these notes of the C major scale. And if you look at the very first one, we have C at the bottom. We have the C, and then we have 2 notes stacked on top of it. And if you look at the next one, we have D, and then once again, 2 notes stacked on top of it. And going on, it's all the same. So even though it's a major key, when we add those notes on top of the notes in the scale, we are actually getting different qualities in terms of each of these chords. So the very first one, C, E, G, you get a major chord. So this first one is a major, and the second one, this is a minor. And how do I tell that this is a minor? Well, if you take D, F, and then A, you go to the keyboard, you plot them, D, F, A. In this case, I'm not actually going to plot, but you can see D, F, A. And if you count the half steps in between these notes, you find that from D to F is going to be 1, 2, 3. This is 3 half steps. And between F and A, there's going to be 4 half steps. So that's how we know that this is minor. But of course, if you are familiar enough with how these triads are supposed to sound, then as soon as you hear it, you can tell, oh, this is the bright and sunny major chord. And this one is a serious and dark minor chord. And the next one is also minor. And this one is minor. And the next one, F, A, C, that's major. G, B, and D, major. And this one, minor. And this one, oh, this one is a bit more special because B, D, and F. From B, if you go up 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 3, and 3. That makes it a diminished chord, right? So, how do we indicate these in the clearest way possible? Well, if you remember when we talked about scales, right, we used something called scale degrees. And scale degrees are essentially just numbers, right? If we have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C in the C major scale, if we want to refer to the 5th note, we say, oh, this is the 5th one. We add that little cap on top of the number. And that's how we tell that this is scale degree and this is the one that we are referring to. Whereas when we're talking about chords in a major key, we have to use something called Roman numerals, and that's these little guys. And in Roman numerals, um, something that we have to pay attention to is how these, some of these are uppercase and some of these are lowercase. And that actually tells you whether it's major or minor. Okay, so if it's a major chord, then you will use uppercase. Like here, this is a major chord. That's why the one is uppercase. And the second one and the third one, uh, these are minor. So you see that these are lower cases. And then these ones are uppercase. And then lowercase again. And this one is lowercase with the little circle, which tells you that this is a diminished chord. Okay, so please try to memorize these. It's really important that you know that if we're talking about chords in a major key, there are three chords that are major. We have 1, 4, and 5. These are always going to be major in a major key. And then we have the minor chords, which are 2, 3, and 6. And then diminished is going to be the 7th one. Okay, so major chords 1, 4, and 5, these sounds like major. And minor is the second one, 2, 3, and 6. And diminished is, of course, the 7th. So, what is the proper way to pronounce these? Well, you can say that if you have something that looks like this, that's a major chord, and that is, the chord that we build upon the first scale degree, right, of the major key. So we will call this a major 1, and this one would be a minor 2. This one would be a minor 3. This one, major 4, major 5, minor 6, diminished 7, and of course, finally, back to the major 1 chord. Okay, so moving on, we're going to add 7th chords. Well, technically, you can add this extra note to all of the chords, but in classical music, we only have 3 of these chords that are commonly used as 7th chords. So those are the second one, and the 5th one, and the 7th one. And to say it properly, we would say this is the minor 2 chord, and the major 5 chord, and then the 7, the diminished 7. And in this case, we would have a 2-7, minor 2-7, and then this 5-7, and then 7 half diminished 7. So this is something you should pay attention to, the half diminished. Why is it half diminished? Wasn't it 7 diminished, right, earlier? Well, remember that in 7th chords, we can have two different forms. We can have the 3-3-3, which is fully diminished 7, or we could have the 3-3-4, and that is the half diminished 7. In this case, it just happens to be B, D, F, and A. And between B and D, that's 3 half steps. Between D and F, 3 half steps. And F and A, that just happens to be 4 half steps. That's why you need to remember that this is a half diminished 7. Okay, so if you accidentally write a diminished 7, then that would be a slight problem. Okay, so please try to remember this and try to memorize this, because you will be writing this over and over again in the exercises that follow. Alright, so exercises. This is actually taken directly from one of the assignments, so you're welcome, because you can basically just copy down the answer. So let's read the question together. So it says, on a separate sheet of paper, write all triads for 1, 3, 4, and 6, as well as 7th chords on 2, 5, and 7 in the indicated keys. Label each chord with Roman numerals and seventh, where applicable, and then reduce the open position chords to close position and indicate the Roman numerals. Add a 7 to 7th chords and place symbols under printed notes. Okay, this is quite a lot, so let's go step by step. On a separate sheet of paper, write all triads for 1, 3, 4, and 6, and 7th chords on 2, 5, and 7. Well, that's basically what we just looked at, right? In classical music, we usually would use 7th chords only on 2, 5, and 7. So that's what it's saying. For the rest, you would just write triads, and then for 7 chords, that would be 2, 5, and 7. So in this case, we are looking at F major. How do we know? Well, it says F, and also there is 1 flat. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is to just write out all of the chords in F major key. So I'm going to write that here. This is treble clef. You can also choose to use bass clef. Doesn't really matter, but make sure that you are writing the key signature correctly. Okay, so in F major, we have F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and of course, back to F. And then the next step is to have the perfectly stacked pancakes. So we have pancakes here, the second chord, third chord, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, and the 8th one. So now, remember, for 2, 5, and 7, we need 7 chords. That would be this 1, 2, 5, and 7. So we just add one more note. Well, maybe I can use a different color just so that it's easier to recognize. Alright, so this is basically it. And the next one is to label each chord with Roman numerals and 7th. Well, that's actually for the actual assignment here, but regardless, we have to do the same for writing out all of the chords. So this, remember, in a major key, 1, 4, and 5 are always going to be major. And then 2, 3, and 6 are going to be minor. 2, 3, 6. 7 is going to be diminished. And then the last one is, of course, a major 1. Well, this is not complete yet because we are still missing the 7th chords, right? So for 2, that has to be a 2, 7. 5, that has to be a 5, 7. And then 7, half diminished 7. This is really, really, really important that you remember that this is a half diminished 7. Okay, so I hope that you can actually practice this on different keys. Just write them down on a separate sheet of paper and see which part you tend to forget, because this will stay the same for every key, every major key. So you just have to know how it's done and you will remember. Okay, so now we have this, and what we have to do for the actual assignment is first to reduce these chords into something called closed positions. Remember, open position means that they are not really within, they cannot be contained within one octave, right? And it sounds more open and balanced, and it sounds better, like. But for this one, we actually need to turn it into closed position because we're going to analyze them. So we have F here, another F, we have C, and then A. Well, we can always start from the lowest note, F. A would go here, and then C. Well, that is closed position. Well, the next one, we have C, B flat, E, and G. Well, same thing, we're going to start from here, C, and then next one is E, and then G, and B flat. Okay, I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to see, but you can tell that there are 4 notes here, so that's going to be a 7th chord for sure. And then the next one is F, A, C, and F. Well, same thing, F, A, C, right? And then the next one is going to be D, F, and A. Okay, so I put a star here because, well, let me first name the notes. So this bottom note is a G, and this is an F, this is a B flat, and this is a G. Well, the most natural thing to do is just to go to G, and then what's the closest note? The next closest note is going to be a B flat. And then, what's the next one? Well, we only have F. Well, okay. There is this gap. What's up with this? So, in Western music, we have these triads and 7 chords. And we have the root, the third, the fifth, the 7th. The root is really important because that's a root that is, the reason why it's called a root is because it's so important. And the third is also important because it tells you the quality of the chord, whether it's major or minor. And the 7th is also really important. That's why we have 7th chords, right? Because it gives this different type of color or extra tension. But the 5th is not that important. So in this case, what you're seeing is the 5th being omitted. Okay, so you just have to understand if that happens, hey, don't panic. You can just add it in because, the difference between G, B flat, F and G, B flat, D, F, it's not that big of a difference. Okay, so you just have to understand. So in this case, that's going to be still a 7th chord, even though there are only 3 notes, right? And moving on, the next one is going to be C, E, and G. Okay, I'm going to just speed up a little bit. I'll just assume that you understand how this works. And the next one is F, A, and C, and then we have C, E, and this one. Okay, we actually have 4 different notes: C, E, B flat, and G. That's why we're gonna have C, E, G, and B flat. And last one. Hey, this is the same thing. That's why you see a little star. F, F, A, and F. We have F and A. So you have to understand that the 5th is being omitted here because harmonically it's not really that significant. Okay, so what we just did is to reduce the open position chords to close position. And now what we have to do is to indicate the Roman numerals. Well, so, one thing that I wish I did was to actually write this in bass clef so that I can, I have a much easier time transferring between this thing that I wrote on the separate sheet of paper and what we actually have to do. But still, I think it's fine. So here we have F, A, and C. That chord is the first chord. That's a 1. So I'm just going to say, hey, this is the major 1 chord. The second one, the root is C. And that would be this one, right? We have C. Sorry, I don't know if you saw it, but here, C, E, G, and B flat. C, E, G, and B flat. So this one is going to be a 5-7 chord. And the next one is F, A, and C, which is back here, F, A, and C. So this one, we're going to have just 1. And then the next one is going to be D, F, and A. Well, where do we find that over here? D, F, and A is going to be this one, right here. D, F, and A. That is the 6th, the minor 6th chord. Okay, so I hope that you can kind of see how we're working between these two. So the next one is going to be G, B flat, D, and F. And that is this one, G, B flat, D, and F. So this is a 2-7 chord. Okay, and then the next one is C, E, and G. So that is here, C, E, and G. Well, this is actually quite important. You see that 2, 5, and 7 chords here are labeled as 7th chords, right? But know that they're not always going to be 7th chords. They can be 7th chords, but if you only have the bottom 3 notes, like here, you only have C, E, and G. C, E, and G, like here, C, E, and G. That means, hey, this is still going to be just a normal triad, the 5 chord, okay? And going on, if you just go back and forth between these two different things we're looking at, this is going to be a major 1. The next one is going to be a 5-7, and the last one is going to be a major 1. So let's just listen to how it sounds now that we have finished analyzing it. So this is going to be all right. So I hope you enjoyed hearing what we were analyzing. So just very quickly, what you have to do first is to write out all of the chords on a separate sheet of paper, and then the next thing is to reduce the chords, the open positions, into closed position, and then you're going to use what you wrote on that separate sheet of paper as a reference, and then you can find out what the actual chords are. Okay, so hopefully this is helpful. I think I was trying to get through this a little fast. So if there's anything that you felt that was confusing, please pause and try to understand every single step, because this is, I would say, the most complicated part of this course. So if there's any question, please email me, and see you in the next lecture.